Okay, this is the book review, Gone with the Wind. Here's the movie cover starring Clark Gable as Rhett Butler and Vivian Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara, Olivia de Havilland as Melanie Hamilton, Leslie Howard as Ashley. It's a magnificent movie, magnificent book. Okay, this is part two. In part one, I showed the paintings of the Civil War. In part two, I'm going to show the pictures from the movie. So I will give you a spoiler alert. I'm going to talk a lot about what's in the movie because that's the purpose of analyzing it. It opened in 1939, the movie. The book was done in 1836. It's the best-selling movie, adjusted for inflation, of all time. And it is the greatest movie of all time. It's so incredible. There's different genre. I mean, there's other movies I loved. You know, It's a Wonderful Life was the greatest family movie of all time. Okay, here they are returning to the wonderful plantation place. Let's see here. Here's Scarlett O'Hara when she was young. She was a little kind of flirt, and she was not that nice. She was sneaky. She really loved Ashley, and she's just flirting with all these other guys because she wants to make Ashley jealous. One of them is the brother of Melanie, Charles, and she's going to end up marrying him, mostly because she wants to make Ashley jealous. This is Mammy. She's like the nanny for Scarlett. She won the Best Supporting Actress award. She was great in the movie. Very funny. She's really friends with Scarlett's mother, and she was given the task of taking care of Scarlett, and Scarlett was a difficult person to take care of. Here is Scarlett in green. She's Irish. Here's Melanie Hamilton. She's the sort of the classic Southern belle, everything good that implies. Here is Ashley Wilkes. He's the Southern gentleman, very intellectual, likes to read a lot, sort of a philosophical guy. Melanie, is in love with Ashley. He's in love with her, and they get married. But Scarlett's also in love with him. And he thinks Scarlett's very pretty. He'd like to sleep with her, I think. He doesn't say that, but it's implied. Versus Melanie's also very smart. They read books. They talk about books. Scarlett doesn't read books, okay? She's got a natural intelligence, but she doesn't have a literary intelligence. And her love for Ashley just screws everything up. When she realizes that Ashley's going to marry Melanie and there's no way around it, she yells at him and she slaps him in the face. And here is Ashley talking to Melanie. And they were meant for each other. They're perfect together, okay? They love each other. They understand each other. Their families have known each other for generations and are very close. Another picture of Ashley with Melanie. Melanie's the best person in the whole book. She's a great person. She's wonderful. She's magnificent. She's like a saint. And she's nice to everybody. And she doesn't care about social mores too much. Here she is talking to the prostitute. Belle Whatley. Belle Whatley also had an affair with Rhett Butler. They're friends. And Melanie knows that this is a good woman. This woman, Belle Whatley, she actually saved Ashley's life. It's a long story, but she did. And here's Scarlett, always looking for a moment when she can sneak in a conversation with Ashley. And he's basically telling her, yeah, you're real pretty, and I did once sort of have a feeling for you, but get out of here. I'm with Melanie. We have a child together, and I'm never going to leave Melanie, so leave me alone. And she's like, well, why don't we run off together? And, Scarlett was absolutely beautiful. She looks a little bit like the Wicked Witch in Snow White, but she was gorgeous. And the reality of it, why was the character so perfect? And I think it's because this is Margaret Mitchell. Margaret Mitchell is very pretty. She looks almost exactly like Scarlett. And she was a very feisty lady in her own right. She was sort of a tomboy when she was young. Then she was a newspaper reporter. Then she was a fancy dancer in the Roaring Twenties, and a bit of a dilettante and a show-off, and out of control by her parents. Her first husband died in World War I, a lot like Scarlett's first husband dying in the Civil War. And then her second husband was a total screw-up. Scarlett's was good, her second husband, but he still died, unfortunately. But that feeling of it, Margaret Mitchell living through Scarlett, that's strong in the book. Like I said, Scarlett kind of reminds me of my wife, more ways than one. Here is the brothers Karamazov characters. And so what I'm trying to say is, the big thing you learn from the book, this is a book by Fyodor Dostoevsky. There's a reason why I'm mentioning it here, because the greatest character in the whole thing was Alyosha. Alyosha is how a man should live, okay? Dmitri was a hothead, always causing trouble. Ivan sort of became an atheist and it screwed up his thinking. He ended up kind of miserable and sad. Versus Alyosha always did things right. And this is the crazy Karamazov story and the crazy father. So in this book, you've got Melanie Hamilton. She's the best person to hold me. Just like Alyosha was in Dostoevsky's book, she is sort of the way a woman should behave. And, you know, Melanie, I would kiss her feet. She's so great. I wish I married Melanie. She was so good. Scarlett was absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, but man, was she a troublemaker, and she's so money-minded and always messing things up for everybody. Mammy was fantastic in her part. And here is after Scarlett had been flirting with her husband, Rhett forced her to wear a red dress. And at the party, when they were, Melanie was the leading lady of Atlanta. She was the head Southern belle of all the societies and stuff. Everybody loved her for good reason. Kind of reminded me of my mom. Everybody loved my mom. My mom was always sort of the boss of all the women, the great matriarch, and she deserved to be. And same with Melanie. And so Melanie could have rejected her, said, get the heck out of here, you flirted with my husband. But instead, Melanie appreciated all that Scarlett had done for her. Scarlett had saved her life when she was pregnant with the baby, when the Yankees invaded into Atlanta. Scarlett had taken her back to Tara and nursed her and taken care of the baby and saved their lives. Tara had fed them for a long time. Scarlett had fed them at Tara for a long time. Scarlett helped Ashley to get a job, let him take over the mill, let him work on her farm. So Scarlett did a lot for them. But all of it really was mostly because she was in love with Ashley. And she had promised Ashley she would take care of Melanie when he was away at the war. He had been a prisoner for a long time. They never knew if he was coming back until rather late in the book. When General Sherman and the Yankees came into Atlanta, they just burned the place down, brutalized the place, you know. It was sort of an evil invasion. And here's a great song. Joan Baez, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. It's great. The group called The Band has a great version of The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down as well. The movie was spectacular in its cinematography and these big scenes. These are all the Southern soldiers wounded or dead. And then they got brutalized. Brutal, brutal, brutal. Just one after another. It was extraordinary how well the movie was filmed. The book went into much detail. Here was a big scene in the movie where Scarlett had been starving and poor because they went back to Tara and the Yankees had taken almost everything, and her mother was dead and her father was now demented. And basically this is a defiant scene where Scarlett stands up and sort of looks up at the sky at the moon and raises her fist and says, as God is my witness, I will never go hungry again. And this was very resonating with the people of that time. It came out in 1936 in the Great Depression when a lot of people were starving. So that's one thing you really like about Scarlett. She's got a lot of guts. She's tough. She's not afraid. She works herself into the ground all day long. So there's a lot of admirable qualities about her. But she's got a lot of bad qualities too. Here she is with Rhett. And she belonged with Rhett. Rhett was great. He was a heroic, good man. Whereas Scarlett was always up to mischief. You know, the green symbolizes Ireland. It also kind of symbolizes money. She wanted money, and she pushed for money, money, money. Then her second husband, Frank, died. And in many ways, it was her fault. It really was her fault indirectly. And so here's Rhett Butler talking to her, and he proposes to her, right, sort of in the early post-widow time, because he says to her, you know, you keep marrying men you don't love. This is my only chance to propose to you. And she was reluctant at first, but then agreed. Here's a situation where Ashley got himself into trouble, and Rhett Butler saved him. It's a long story, but he did. And Melanie appreciated that. She knew Rhett had saved him. Here's a scene where these are the women at the grave of General Stonewall Jackson, a bunch of Southern women. And Melanie was in charge of one of the societies for, taking care of the graves. I talked about that in a previous movie about how great Melanie was. I'm not going to go through all that again, but Melanie was like a saint. Here's Rhett Butler with Scarlett O'Hara when he's saving her life. He's taking her out of Atlanta when the place is burning down because the Yankees are raping and pillaging the place. And now here's when they're married, and Scarlett keeps arguing with the guy and being nasty to him. And then she even says she won't even sleep with him anymore. She doesn't want any more babies. She screwed up the whole marriage. Rhett wanted going back to Belle Watley and his old prostitute girlfriend. They did have one baby. This is Bonnie. And Bonnie was the love of their life, was a total joy for them. They had two earlier children as well of Scarlett. Wade Hampton from the first father, from Charles, and then Ellie from the second father, Frank. And Scarlett just, says, I don't want any more babies. I don't want to become fat. She really wants to keep herself skinny for Ashley. And I can tell you, whenever a woman says she don't want no more babies, that's a giant red flag. There's a problem with the relationship. Run for your life. Trust me on that one. So anyways, this is Scarlett saying she wants a separate bedroom from Rhett. Rhett's kind of freaked out by the whole thing. He's very sad and upset about it. And then he finds out she was flirting with Ashley, and he gets pissed off about that. And even though she wanted a separate bedroom, he says, no, you're sleeping with me tonight. And he carries up the stairs in a very dramatic scene. But Scarlett actually enjoyed it. Look at the smile on her face. She's actually happy that she got pregnant. And that'll have important implications for what comes next. By the way, Scarlett, doesn't she look like Liz Taylor? She certainly does. Okay, then Rhett was gone for a couple of months with Bonnie, their daughter, out in Louisiana, visiting some of the other relatives in Charleston. And then when he comes back, Scarlett's pregnant. She wants to tell Rhett. She's happy she's pregnant. But for some stupid reason, they start arguing with each other. And they say nasty things. And Scarlett tries to slap him in the face. They're standing at the top of the stairs. Rhett kind of dodges out of the way. Scarlett falls down the stairs, has a miscarriage, breaks her rib. It's totally sad. It's so sad it's not even funny in the movie. And then their daughter, Bonnie, tried to jump a horse over a small fence, and she died. And she was the love of the life of Rhett Butler. It broke his heart. He didn't even want to bury the child. Melanie came and spoke to him. It is so sad. This is one of the most sad books you'll ever read in your life. And so Rhett has just been exhausted. He's tired of Scarlett's BS. And he tells her, now Scarlett, finally, after all the crazy stuff that happened, and Melanie also died, after all the crazy stuff that happened, Scarlett finally wakes up and realizes Rhett is the good man in her life and she belongs with him and she should do anything to get him back. But he's had it. Rhett Butler's had it with her, and she says, well, he says, I'm leaving you, Scarlett. I want a divorce. She says, well, he says, I'm leaving you, Scarlett. She says, well, what will I do? What will happen to me? He says, Scarlett, frankly, I don't give a damn. So that was like the big famous line from the movie. And you could understand why Rhett said that. Then she's crying and crying. And then she says to herself, well, I don't want to think about it now. I'll think about it tomorrow. I know I can get him back. I know I can get him back. I love him. And tomorrow is another day. So at least it ended on a line of hope. But it was a rather incredible emotional experience, the movie. You feel like you know the characters really well. They're so perfectly portrayed. It's a 49-hour book. So they really go into a lot of detail. And this was Gone with the Wind meant that the South was gone with the wind. The Civil War just destroyed the South. It did, like Sherman burned the place down. But I can tell you it was a magnificent book, a magnificent movie. Okay, that'll be it for part 2 of the review. I'll do a third part where I'll go into a little more detail about some of the literary features of the book.